So I want to officially welcome you to the NIADA Legislative Power Lunch, again for the 7th consecutive year. And I just want to, again, tell you how much we appreciate you all coming out and being a part of our legislative festivities. Hopefully you guys are getting some fun, war stories with the different meetings and stuff that you guys are having. But what I'd like to do at this time is introduce our keynote speaker for the lunch. And for those who aren't keeping score at home, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer is a dear friend of the automotive industry, and he's one of the few, heroes of the industry that, works behind the scenes, doing a lot of really good stuff for the car business, for small business, for the industry. You guys remember hearing something about the CFPB's indirect lending guidance document a few years ago where, the very existence of your ability to make money on financing was somehow automatically determined to be discriminatory. So the CFPB issued the guidance document and away we went. So he's been a big advocate for getting that knocked down. He's been a big advocate for working on behalf of dealers at the CFPB. He actually sponsored a bill eliminating some provisions of the annual privacy notice to make it a little bit more operationally friendly for our small business owners. And he's also a big advocate on arbitration. So he's got all of the issues that are important to us in his wheelhouse. And Congressman, thank you so much for all the work you're doing on all those things. But let me tell you a little bit more about Congressman Luetkemeyer. As the congressman from the 3rd Congressional District of Missouri, Blaine is committed to representing the interests of the hardworking people by being a strong voice for them in Washington, D.C. Representing the 13 counties that make up the 3rd Congressional District of Missouri, Blaine is a native of St. Elizabeth, Missouri. He has lived in the district with his family for more than 4 generations, and he operates a 160-acre farm there. So for some of the ranchers and cowboys in the group, we got a fellow farmer here. Along with his strong agricultural background, Blaine was also a small businessman. Having been in the banking and insurance business, he also served as a bank regulator for the state of Missouri earlier in his career. From 1999 to 2005, he was a Missouri state representative and served as a chairman of the Financial Services Committee and was elected by his colleagues to serve as the House Republican Caucus chairman. After leaving office, he was appointed by Governor Matt Blunt to serve as the director of the Missouri Division of Tourism. Blaine was first elected to Congress in November 2008 and was reelected in 2010, 12, 14, and 16. And with our help, he'll be reelected again next year. In the 116th Congress, Blaine serves as a member of the House Financial Services Committee and as the ranking member of the Consumer Protection and Financial Institutions Subcommittee. He is a member of the Knights of Columbus, Chamber of Commerce, Missouri Farm Bureau, National Rifle Association, and a lifelong member of St. Lawrence Catholic Church. He's a graduate of Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri, where he earned a degree with distinction in political science and a minor in business administration. And last night, we raised a lot of money for our PAC fund, and this is a prime example of your money hard at work for you. And he doesn't know that we're gonna do this, so Congressman, you might have to change your remarks just a little bit. But at this time, I would love for each of you to welcome to the podium our 2019 NIADA Legislator of the Year, Congressman Blaine Luetkemeyer.
Wow, thank you very much, Sean, and all of the great folks here at the NIADA today. That caught me by surprise, but around here, you have to be willing to roll with the flow. Everything's a surprise around this place anymore. But thank you very much. It's very humbling to receive an award. It's a nice recognition of all the work that we do and the concern that we have for all the different industries that we oversee, the constituents that we represent, and the business community that provides the services and products to my constituents. So thank you sincerely for the recognition and the honor, and we'll put it in a very appropriate place in the office. Thank you very much. Thank you for the nice intro. I've got kind of a varied background. My wife wants to know when I grow up because I haven't really got a real job here lately, so but we're working at it. But the committee that I sit on, the Financial Institutions Subcommittee, oversees all the banks, credit unions, payday lenders, mortgage bankers, CFPB stuff, so all the regulators, including the CFPB, Federal Reserve, Comptroller, everybody, credit union folks. So it has a huge purview, and as a result, we have lots and lots of issues that come before us, and a number of them impact your area in particular, and you have had some problems with the CFPB in the past with their overreach, and we have fought for you and tried to make sure that we kept that to a minimum or stopped it altogether. But I think, we have a new regulator in town now, and she has done a good job of rolling back some of the nonsense. One of the things that myself and my colleagues did was try to make sure that they stopped, enforcing guidance as a way to do things. Technically what's supposed to happen is we pass a law, Congress does, and then the bureaucracy is able to make rules. We empower it to make rules to implement the law. And sometimes those rules need a little fine-tuning, so they issue guidance to tell people best practices or explain what's really going on with the rule. But what's happening with the CFPB was that they were using this guidance and enforcing it like it was law. And as a result, they became de facto legislators. And so the previous CFPB director had to be reined in, stop the nonsense, because every time that they were challenged in court, they lost. But they were picking off the low-hanging fruit, people who couldn't push back. And as a result, they were winning large sums of money because people, rather than go to court and spend millions of dollars, would be willing to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines to minimize their cost. And so they were getting away with it. And so we worked and worked and worked to try and push back on that, and they were pretty slick about how they were able to make that work. But I think now we have in place a rule among all of the regulators, and it came down from FSOC, which is the Financial Stability Oversight Committee, which includes all of the Fed, Comptroller, FDIC, CFPB, credit union folks. All of these folks are represented on this committee, and said guidance is no longer going to be enforceable. So you can't make this stuff up, then go enforce it and expect to be able to come in and change your business model and harm you with that. So that was, I think, a big deal that we were able to help you with. From the standpoint of other bills in our committee that may or may not impact you, we have a flood insurance, terrorism insurance, and an export-import bank. Those three things are coming through our committee shortly, or if not already been through it. But as a result of the inability of Congress as a whole to put something together, those things are probably going to be just extended in the, which they did in the continuing resolution that the Senate should pass probably tomorrow or next day. So the other thing that is important, I think, that you need to be aware of is Operation Choke Point. I know some of you may have been involved in this, where the financial regulators come in and they try to intimidate the banking community, the bank officers, the bank board, and say, well, we don't believe that this industry is because of our political preference or our set of values. They meet up with the standards that we believe you should be investing in. And so this was a really, really dangerous precedent that they were setting, because if they would get this done in the way that they were going through this, eventually they could actually drive all small businesses out of business, regardless of what industry you're in, because you could intimidate the bankers into no longer financing anything. So if you can't, put no place to put your money, you can't clear credit cards, you can't clear checks, you can't get loans, how are you going to exist? Doesn't work. And they were out there pushing, they started out with payday loans because everybody thinks those are bad things, but And they went on to tobacco shops and car dealers, and then now they were ATM operators. I mean, the list is endless of people that they felt shouldn't be in business. And as a result, we've been working on this, and we actually have a bill up shortly that's hopefully, we passed it last year out of the House, went to the Senate, didn't go anywhere because we did it at the end of the session last year. But I think by putting in place the guidelines, which I've gotten the regulators to agree that this should not happen, the new regulators, but putting it in law puts a guardrail around that such that they will not do this in the future. This is my concern, is that the next administration, whoever it is, comes in and they decide that, you know, we want to do a little more regulation here, and we can do this. We can become de facto regulators and de facto legislators by going out and intimidating the banks into no longer providing financial services to this industry here and this industry here. Or what you could do, and what they were trying to do, was consolidate all of run the small business out of business and consolidate to the big businesses. And guess who controls the big businesses? Government. So it was about power and control. Never underestimate the other side. It's about power and control. They will do anything and everything they can to consolidate that and empower themselves. So to me, this was a hugely important thing that we were able to get done, because if they ever able to fine tune this thing, they can take over our country without any sort of legislation, without firing a shot. So it's extremely important. Operation Choke Point was what it was called, and we're going to have, like I said, we're going to have a bill up shortly. In fact, today on the House floor, it's partnered with marijuana banking, which I'm not a big fan of marijuana, but and there's a big problem across the state with the banking of marijuana funds. Technically, it's illegal because there is a federal law that says there's still a Schedule I drug, which means it's just like heroin and cocaine and any other drug. It's illegal. However, some states have gone out and passed laws either at the legislative level or had initiative petitions by their people to okay either full-blown, you can do anything you want to with marijuana, all the way down to medical marijuana, that's up to the states. However, the problem is it still is illegal. Federal law always trumps state law. And so for us to pass this law is going to put in place a federal law. It's going to be in conflict with another federal law, which normally when you pass a law, we supersede the other law that we're working on. In this situation, we're not doing that. We're not descheduling the drug. We're over here saying, well, we're going to let the states make the decision on what they want to do with this. Well, you can't do that because we didn't deschedule the drug. And so we're going to have two laws in conflict with each other, which I have no idea how it's going to play out. My cohorts think that this is a solution. I've talked to every single regulator and every attorney I can that knows something about this, and they said, will not work. So anyway, they're going to marry with my bill, so I'm going to support it because I want my bill to go through. And whether this works or not, we'll find out down the road. But anyway, if your legislators got some questions about it, well, send them to me. I'd be glad to talk to them about it. With regards to beneficial ownership, you guys are all small business folks, and this is an issue that the Treasury Department under the previous administration felt they needed the FinCEN, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, felt that they needed more information to be able to fight money launderers and folks who are trying to do some nefarious things. And so if they had the information with regards to actually owns these companies, they could find the shell companies out there, and they could have a better chance of trying to find the bad guys. It's a laudable goal. I have a lot of discussions with FinCEN, and they've got their set of problems. But what they did was put a burden on everybody who's a small business person to comply with this. And they put the banks in the middle of it as a third party. And I told them, I said, I don't care whether it's the banks or your attorneys or whether it's the local law enforcement or whether it's accountants, nobody needs to be in the middle of this. I said, you need to have FinCEN directly do this, and you need to narrow this field down to who actually you're searching for. So we've been working with a colleague across the aisle, and we've come up with a bill that's going to narrow the scope. FinCEN thinks they still have to have the information, so we're going to narrow it down as narrow as we can to have as least impactful as we can and take away as much of the penalties as we can, such that it's hopefully no more than just when you get a postcard every year and has there been any change in ownership of your business, so no, check the box, send it in, and that's all there is to it. So hopefully we can minimize that impact to you, because we don't need to have to file multiple forms and have to be imposed upon by some potential fines and things like that. But I think, we're working with, we got the bill out of the committee. I got 2 amendments. I think I can improve the bill even further. There's interest in the Senate to try and do something on the issue, and so I think there's a chance to actually get something done down the road on this. As partisan as the place has become here over the last several months, and quite frankly going to get worse, it's very difficult to get things done. So it's important that you're here today to let people know what is important to you, what issues you have concerns about. Now, your association director here does a great job, but he needs all of you to be able to be advocates for him. I'm sure you're all going for Hill visits shortly, I assume. Going to charge the Hill today, knock on lots of doors, shake hands and twist my arm and everybody else's, right? Huh? Okay. It's important that you do that. It's important you're here. Trust me. I want to hear from you. I can hear from him any day. He's here all the time. But I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear the stories of how what we do here in Washington is impactful to you and your business. Did the tax cut help? Did it enable you to be able to keep and retain your earnings? Did it help you hire more people? Did it help you expand your business? What about other rules and regulations like the CFPB and other financial services stuff that help or hinder you from being able to finance, help the people you work with to finance to purchase your products? Those are things we want to know. And I want to hear it from you. Because if I hear it from you, I'll know that this is something that's really important. And so I thank you for being here. Please contact all your congressmen and your senators. They need to know who you are. You need to know them by name. They need to know you by name so that when you go in and you say, look, this is really important to me. You have credibility. You have no idea how important it is to talk to you versus him. Not that it's important, trust me now. But all of you bring a different perspective. All of you, this is your livelihood. This means something to you. I'm a small business guy myself. I come from a town of 336 people, probably the smallest town of any congressman in this town. So I understand small business, I understand small communities, I understand your role and how it all works. And I know how important you are and the things that happen here, how they do affect you at home. That's why I ran for Congress, to be able to try and find a way to help the small business folks and the people who they serve and the communities that they serve to be able to not have to be so terribly impacted by stuff that goes on. So your being here today is important, and I thank you for that. Look forward to your visits and your comments and your questions and whatever else you got. With that, I got one more question here, one more topic with regards to trade. I get a lot of questions with regard to trade. How's everything going? Well, I think, it's a long discussion on trade here, and I'll try to kind of recap it very quickly. I think we're going to get the USMCA, that's the Canada-Mexico agreement, done shortly. And the reason I believe that, I think Speaker Pelosi politically has to have this thing done. She has some members who are in swing districts. If they don't get this, they're going to go back home and they're going to be in trouble. I think what you're seeing play out with regards to the impeachment thing, I think is part of the appeasement of the far left that hate this thing. I think what she's trying to do is throw them a bone so she can then bring up the USMCA. Not just me speaking, but watch how this plays out. And I think what you'll see is this, I think within the next 2 or 3 months, before the end of the year, I think you'll see it come to the floor. It'll pass overwhelmingly. The China's a different deal. I can tell you that once China gets done, Europe is going to fall in line. It's on the back burner right now. They're waiting to finalize the Chinese deal. The crux of that is to get the enforcement provisions in with regards to intellectual property. This is a really, really big deal. The Chinese have been stealing our property for years and impacting our economy and our country, and they are open about it. All you have to do is go read their public statements. They want to take us over by 2049. It's out there. So if we don't sit here and push back, guess what? And all of you are in the middle of this because you're small business people who they want to try and overrun. They want to take advantage of everything that you do. And so cars are right in the middle of all this. Vehicles are right in the middle of this. And the president fights every day with regards to the vehicles. So the other countries want to always utilize these things as leverage against him. And he says, look, that's fine. You want to do that? That's fine. But I'm going to tax your cars when you come to this country 25%. And immediately they come right to the table because automobiles are a huge part of the economy of all these different countries. Is a big, big part of their economy, and they can't have somebody tinkering with it. So as a result, it's a leverage point that he's found that helps him negotiate the deals. And so whether it's Canada, Mexico, Japan, EU, or China, automobiles is a very, very big deal to the president, and he wants to make sure that we protect this industry here, as well as agricultural products of this country, which the other thing they're trying to leverage, and he's been very successful at pushing back on that. So I think, my personal opinion is, I think you wind up, because they're negotiating right now behind the scenes on the lower levels with China, I think what you'll see is probably sometimes before maybe the end of the year, you'll see a meeting between the president and President Xi. I fully expect the Chinese to walk away from the table at least one more time. I think Xi's trying to drag this out and play the game with the president because he wants to see how far down the road the president will go. You know, the Far Eastern folks, when they're negotiating, they want to see if they walk away from the table, how much it takes to get you to come back. What will you be willing to give up? So every time they walk back from the table, they want to see how badly you want to work with them. And the president's called her bluff on it. He said, that's fine. Give me a call when you're ready to negotiate. I'm not going to give you a doggone thing. And as a result, they found that he's really difficult to negotiate from the standpoint of how they like to negotiate. And as a result, he's making great progress. So I think that President Xi walks away at least one more time, kind of see where the election results are going to head with the president. And from there, I think eventually we'll get a deal done because, quite frankly, they need the deal done a whole lot more than we do. Their country is in a free fall from the standpoint of their economy. The real economic growth number there is like 2.6 instead of 6%. They got over 4% unemployment, 4% inflation. They've pumped in over $200 billion in their economy over the last couple of years. They've got a huge problem with Hong Kong on their southern border, and the South Pacific Sea is a problematic area for them besides North Korea. So President Xi's got a whole lot of balls in the air that he's trying to take care of. We in this country, we don't like our leader. We throw him out at the next election. Over there, in a dictatorship, you drag him out by their heels. And the President Xi has got a huge problem on his hands when it comes to his own countrymen. When you have 4% unemployment and you have 1.4 billion people in your country, you have a lot of unhappy people. You have a lot of unhappy people. So he is really sensitive to this. I think the president's trying to work with him so he can save face when the deal's cut, and they're trying to work through all this as we speak. So I think the deal will get done, and after that, you'll see the Europeans fall in line. The Japanese were able to beat the Chinese to the table. I know I talked to the Japanese last summer, and they were anxious to get it ahead of the Chinese, and they were able to do that this summer. So with that, let me stop right there and thank you again for all that you do. I encourage you in your Hill visits to talk about your issues and your concerns, what is important to you, your folks back home, your business, your communities, because that's what I want to hear. That's, I'm sure, what my colleagues want to hear. Thank you very much.